We're gonna switch to the Aarbeidsreglement. I don't know the word in English, but I think at your faces to see, you know what an Aarbeidsreglement is. Very good, because it's the first document the inspection is gonna ask you. If they come one day, first question is, give me your Aarbeidsreglement. So if you say, I don't have any, you're already bad in the bad papers. So Aarbeidsreglement, it's an obligation to have in Belgium if you're an employer. So if you have only one worker, you still have to have an Aarbeidsreglement. And so, I picked out a few topics that's problematic in an Aarbeidsreglement and that we see causes a lot of problem when the inspection comes. So the first important part is arbeidsduur. We already talked when we talked about part-time, full-time. So when you have people who work in a flexible time, you have to have a frame, as I said in the first part, when you put, okay, my shop is open from 8 till 12 o'clock, and so people are probably working in this time frame. So if someone is in your shop at 2 in the morning, that's not normal. And so you have to put the beginning of your day, the end of the day. I don't think I have an example. Yes. So it looks a bit like this. You have all the days of the week, and I think most of the shops are open 7 to 7. So here you then see 8 in the morning, 12, and then minimum in the day the persons work 2 hours and maximum 9 hours a day, for example. So this is what such a frame look like in your Aarbeidsreglement. Then the other important topic is GDPR. I don't know if it rings a bell or if it's brand new information. You know, we live in Europe, and so they in 2018 they put a regulation about our privacy, you know, with all the scandal on Facebook and such things. We have to protect our privacy information. That's why you receive the mail from all your shoppings when you have to say, I agree with the information and stuff. That's because of the GDPR. So we cannot do what we want with the personal information. And you are an employer, so you have important information about your workers. You have their bank accounts, you have their address, you have their names, their situation, you know, their salary. You have a lot of personal information about these people, and so they have to be protected. And we, as a Sociaal Secretariat, we have more information because we have your information, we have the information of your workers, and so we can spread a lot of bad information if we want. So Europe says you have to protect this information. And so what does that concrete mean? It means that in your Aarbeidsreglement, you have to say what you do with this information. Who has access to this information? Is that only you as manager of the shop, or is that also your daughter that helps with the salary? Or is that also the manager? Who can access all this information? And what do they do with this information? Do they send it to everyone they know, or what happens? And so you have to put something in your Aarbeidsreglement that says who has access, what do they do. For example, also an important one, certainly in shops, you maybe have cameras in your shop. The question is, that's also personal because you can see what I'm doing, for example. The question is, who has access to this camera? Who watches these images? Do you keep it for a month, a year, and then you destroy the images, or how does it work? So you have to put in your Aarbeidsreglement what you do with this personal information. And because we have a lot of employers that says, okay, we know the GDPR, but we have no idea what to put in our Aarbeidsreglement, we have a standard, a model, a type Aarbeidsreglement where we have such. We have 2 pages about what the employer does with the GDPR. But you have, for example, to mention the manager has access to this personal information, and also Sociaal Secretariat has access to this information, and so on. Another important point that we see, inspections are a bit complicated about it. It's preventie van psychosociale risico's. I have no idea how to translate it in English, but I will try to explain it. It's something you put in your arbeidsreglement because the employer has to do something when a worker is confronted with stress, burnout, conflict, violence, and so on, the all Me Too series and so on. And so the employer has to put a procedure in his arbeidsreglement that says, okay, if a worker is confronted with one of these problems, what can he do? And so most of the time you have an internal procedure. You said, okay, you can always come talk to this person, vertrouwenspersoon, maybe you have one of these persons in your company. Or you can also put an external procedure, like, okay, you can file a complaint to de algemene directie toezicht op welzijn op het werk. But we see that the inspections, they are going to look in your arbeidsreglement and see, okay, do you talk about such a procedure? If one of your workers is confronted with violence on the work floor, or I don't know what can happen, what can he do? Who can he contact? Where can he file a complaint? And so on. And so we have also one of these documents in our standard arbeidsreglements. But this is something that the inspections, they are really eager now to check if it's in your arbeidsreglement. Then the last topic I'm going to talk in the arbeidsreglement is the incapacity to come work. Someone who is sick, someone who is ill. I think you all had one worker that one day called in sick. Know that in Belgium, the only obligation we have when we are sick is to call or to send an email to the employer and says, I'm going to be sick today and I'm going to be working tomorrow again. That's the only obligation a worker has in Belgium, is to inform the employer that he's sick. Imagine that will be your case in your shop. It's going to be very easy because I'm going to call every day my employer, okay, I'm sick, bye, and I'm never going to work again. So what do most of the employers do? They put something in their arbeidsreglement that says, you inform your employers, but in the 2 days that follow it, I'm going to need a paper from your doctor that says you're in incapacity and that you do not fake an illness in your bed and that you still stay there the whole day. So the problem is most of the employers doesn't mention that in their arbeidsreglement, and then they cannot demand such a paper from the doctor from their worker. So very important to put that in your arbeidsreglement because otherwise you cannot ask such a paper, and then for your workers it's going to be very easy to not come to work. What's the sanction? Imagine someone calling sick but they don't file a paper from the doctor. What can you do? You can then refuse to pay gewaarborgd loon. You know, in Belgium, when we are sick, the first few days are paid by the employer, and afterwards it's the ziekenfonds that pays the sick days. So if someone doesn't file a doctor's paper, you can then say, okay, you're not going to get paid for your sick days. That's the sanction you can do.